Hello, Dark Reader, and welcome to the Dark Side of the Library podcast. I'm your host, Katie, and today on this minisode, we will be talking about the book Hidden Pictures. This is by Jason Rekulak. His last name is Ukrainian. Hidden Pictures actually won the Goodreads Choice Award in 2022, and apparently it might actually become a movie, a show, something for Netflix. So we're going to talk about this book. First, I want to talk about who Jason is. Next, I will just summarize the book as far as how the publishers have laid it out for us. And then lastly, we're going to get into my thoughts. Before I begin, I will probably have a few spoilers in here. So if you haven't read the book, feel free to go read it and then come back to this podcast episode. Next, my review. So ultimately, I gave this book about a 3 out of 5 star. And I do want to address some of those big issues because there are some large issues in this book that are more of a social political issue. As far as the story goes, the story is a solid horror story for the most part. There's things that are like ridiculous, but it's pretty standard writing style. So, but I will get into that a little later, and I want to address those issues as carefully as I can. So let's begin with Jason. Who is Jason? Now, he has written 2 novels. Hidden Pictures is one of them, and it was published in May of 2022. The other one is called The Impossible Fortress, and he was a publisher of Quirk Books, which is an indie press from Philadelphia, and he ghost wrote a lot of weird books that may or may not be on Goodreads, actually. He lives in West Philly with his wife and his children with a lot of pets, and it seems like he really enjoys writing thrillers, mystery, crime novels. Now, let me share with you what the publisher has written about Hidden Pictures. What is the summary? It's a mystery about a woman working as a nanny for a young boy with strange and disturbing secrets. Fresh out of rehab, Mallory Quinn takes a job in an affluent suburb of Springbrook, New Jersey, as a babysitter for Ted and Caroline Maxwell. She is to look after their 5-year-old son, Teddy. Mallory immediately loves this new job. She lives in the Maxwell's pool house, goes out for nightly runs, and has the stability she craves. And she sincerely bonds with Teddy, a very sweet, very shy boy who is never without his sketchbook and his pencil. I can understand this. His drawings are the usual fare. There's trees, rabbits, balloons. But one day, he starts to draw something a little different. A man in the forest dragging a woman's lifeless body. As the days pass, Teddy's artwork becomes more and more sinister, and his stick figures steadily evolve into more detailed, complex, and lifelike sketches well beyond the ability of any 5-year-old. Mallory begins to suspect these are glimpses of an unsolved murder from long ago, perhaps relayed by a supernatural force lingering in the forest behind the Maxwell's house. With help from a handsome landscaper and an eccentric neighbor, Mallory sets out to decipher the images and save Teddy, while coming to terms with the tragedy in her own past before it is too late. Alrighty, so let me tell you my thoughts on the book. I've already said that I give this book about a 3 out of 5. I'm going to save my more political rant towards the end, so if you feel like you need to turn the podcast off, you can. So let's just talk about this story in general. It's a pretty standard story. I got some Omen vibes a little bit because we've got creepy kid doing creepy things, and oh yay! I personally have a thing about watching movies and reading books with creepy kids. I think it just enhances the creep factor sometimes. In this case, I personally just did not find this book very creepy, and it's possible it's because I did not read the actual book. So in the actual book, Hidden Pictures, there are illustrations that kind of guide you along this journey that Mallory is taking when she's babysitting Teddy, and all of these photos and illustrations that he keeps drawing. And, when they are described, they're generically creepy, but I'm sure it just doesn't have the same oomph as seeing an actual illustration of a man dragging a body out into a forest. So maybe that is my bad. The story is a paint-by-numbers thriller, and it's a little supernatural as well. We've probably seen themes like this over and over again, like Omen is an example of this. Kid potentially being possessed by a supernatural force. Who knows what the supernatural force actually is? They believe that the supernatural force is this entity, kind of like the local boogeyman of this town. So because she, allegedly, the gossip in the town is that she was killed in this pool house that Mallory is now staying in. So Mallory keeps revealing all of these photos around the pool house, and she thinks, it's possible that Teddy is actually possessed by this boogeyman. So we're following that story pretty closely, fairly early on in the story. I like the consistency there. Then we kind of come up on a bit of a twist. And you know what? I have to say, when I was listening to the book, I actually kind of enjoyed it. And I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because I wasn't reading in too far into it. My expectations haven't been the highest as of late, I'm sure you know. So it was really nice to see a little more consistency in a novel than there has been in a while for the ones I have read. So this, again, is a personal bias. Now, let me talk about the characters real fast. Mallory, unfortunately, she tends to be a bit of a pushover, and there's a lot of things that she kind of deals with her employers. So Ted and Caroline, that I just wouldn't be dealing with, especially when it came to Ted. And those things I felt like were a little stereotypical. Oh, of course, they have an unhappy marriage and Ted is hitting on the babysitter. But whatever, it's fine. Who cares? Caroline kind of does a bit of a 180 in the book, but I personally think it is consistent with her character. It might seem like a really nonsensical 180, but I don't think it is, because she is a helicopter mom to a T. She is horrifying. I personally have seen mothers like this, and they terrify the crap out of me for exactly why Caroline's weird 180 twist at the end ends up being, it makes sense to me, because I've heard weird slips from actual moms where or people who want to be moms, and they've said some really crazy things. Caroline was a interesting character, but still, again, a pretty stereotypical character. Most of these characters fall within a particular stereotype we've seen over and over again, and sometimes that's totally fine, and I didn't have a huge problem with that in this case. So as far as the main story goes, I felt like the pacing was fine. It kept me interested for the most part. I didn't find myself daydreaming away, but I wasn't super intrigued either. Maybe it was the predictability where it was just easier to keep track of what was going on, because it's pretty much a staple possession story, the build-up at least. And I did think the twist was interesting at the end. It kind of incorporates two different genres together, our traditional thriller crime twist with a supernatural twist at the same time. I kind of enjoyed that. So let me just get into the things that were blindingly bad. I felt like throughout this book, there's a lot of virtue signaling. So we have two different ideas. We have Mallory, who's coming from rehab. You know, she believes in God, she goes to church, she has more of a conservative perspective, and then she is babysitting for more of our liberal fare, and we get a lot of just these political inserts kind of throughout the story, and we see that virtue signaling on both sides. Like, everybody is very much into their beliefs, and it's really weird. And I did notice that very early on, because the neighbor, for instance, proclaims she's a libertarian, but she's very clearly racist, just the way that she reacts to the gardeners. She's like, oh, watch out for the Mexican gardeners. So, and it's To me, so this is a problem I'm seeing is I think it's okay to have abrasive characters, but I just feel like in this case, it's weird because it wasn't like one side or the other side was better, but it was just more political than I would have anticipated in a thriller novel. It just really didn't have a point, I guess. I was just really confused. I don't think there's really any necessary reason to mention anybody's sexual orientation, their race, their gender identity, unless if it's actually related to the story. So we see a lot of things where it was like, oh, these are her lesbian friends. And it's like, why is that a thing? And those characters only pop up once and they're only the lesbian friends. I don't know why we need to keep doing this, especially since we're trying to progress and be more open to everybody. Without getting too political myself, it just felt like there was a lot of that happening in this book, and it wasn't necessary or pertaining to the story at all. There was no reason for it to even be present. In addition, pertaining to the political issues, this book can feel very transphobic. In fact, I definitely see the transphobia, and I was feeling it as I was progressing through the story. So, and I was kind of thinking more about it later as to why, and it is because there was no reason for this to even be a part of the story, especially a story that is supposed to be a crime thriller, paranormal, and it could have just been left at Caroline's behavior and what she did, but the added on climax where Mallory is hanging out with Teddy later in life just really felt like it was slathered on, and it didn't feel like a great end, and it was a little weird. The end was a little weird. So all of those things, the socio-political issues are jarring. I thought they were really up in your face. So I do understand why people on Goodreads, especially if it won the Goodreads award, are very upset with this book. On a different note, some things that are also a little weird, our character, and I think this is something you need to be careful of too, so that we don't get the wrong impression on the healing process as far as addiction goes. And the mental health part associated with that, and what the actual proper precautions would be. So I felt like that wasn't handled as well as that could have been, especially since Mallory, that's a huge part of her character, is that she is a recovering addict. So I think if you want to make that a part of her character, that's totally fine. But I would say having some good research into that would be good. I thought some of the ways that other people handled Mallory and how she was handling paranormal experiences, I thought that was actually accurate. I think Mallory could have been developed a little bit further, and her recovery and what it takes, because it's not easy. It's not like she can be in that kind of environment with those kinds of people and just being okay. It like just seemed a little strange. Even for all of its faults, I did give it a 3 out of 5 star. It did win the Goodreads award. Lots of people enjoyed the story. It is a paint by numbers thriller, not supernatural. It wasn't super terrifying. If you're looking for something really creepy, this is probably not it, but it's a good kind of creepy book. There are a few glaring political issues in the book and maybe too much of the virtue signaling, but that's just me. Let me know what you think of this novel in our comment section on YouTube or whatever your favorite listening app is. We'd love to hear from you, or you can find us on darksideofthelibrary.com and comment on the post there. Make sure to join us on Instagram and Facebook for any possible book club events. You can also find us on Amazon Live. We try to do horror trivia games on Fridays. So that is on amazon.com/live/Dark Side of the Library. We'd love to see you there. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode. Have a great rest of your week.